Hey, how's it going everyone? Entropy here today with another video. Today we're going to be doing more gameplay, but this time it's going to be different. So yesterday evening I actually joined in a proper tournament, from MKWA. So shout out to MKWA, the Morikawa group. And it was really fun. I got to play with several really good players. And if you have seen the title, one of them were the champion of the Vanguard Zero 2020 championships. So the fights are really exciting, so I hope you enjoy. I did some editing work this time. I put some more effort in it. But yeah, I mean, this tournament was the best of one format, so it isn't really a true test of their skills. But I do think that these fights were really entertaining. I will commentate here and there, and I hope you enjoy. So let's get to the first match immediately. The first match is against PATRICIAN Pat, the Vanguard Championship 2020 champion of Global. This game is very exciting. I've been looking to get a chance to fight against him. Very skilled player if you've seen his fight videos. But yeah, let's look at what we have here. I know it's a mirror match, and then I don't want to be that risky. I know the Cypher's a decent ride target in the early game, so I'm keeping that. I kept the medical manager because it is the ideal first ride, and then I had the jelly bean to search for any grade 2 or grade 1 that I need later into the game, as well as ensure that I don't proc the heals too early. So I ride the medical manager. That's pretty general. Let's see what I got. So here I pass for a turn. Oh, look at those sleeves. Oh, I'm so jealous about those sleeves. So, of course, PATRICIAN Pat plays the medical manager as well. Very skilled player, of course. The same setup for the Mecha Trainer, which I do believe you should put in the corners, generally speaking, because you're not playing crit, so your Vanguard column doesn't need to attack first, and your rearguards need the boost to reach the numbers after all. Putting the Mecha Trainer in the right column, the side columns also mean that you can call grade 1s to be more aggressive. So here I'm thinking what I should ride. Should I ride the 10K or should I ride the Douglas? They both have merits, but here I believe I will ride the 10K. A safer option overall. And then I'll search for the PG. And then because I use the counterblast, I will use Jelly Bean. Using Jelly Bean right now, I know if I hit a heal, I will heal it, and I will heal a counterblasted damage, which is an argument for using Mecha Trainer early. I know a lot of players do prefer keeping it for later, because especially in this matchup, there are no retire skills on the opponent's side. But I do feel the need for heavier counterblast management, and maybe tossing Douglas here was a misplay because I do need to hit a trigger in order to get the attack in. But against like an aggro deck like Spike Brothers, and I know my opponent's list is playing multiple copies of the 7K, which makes their early game pressure just a lot more aggressive. I do want to set up an intercept to protect myself. Here, the Devil Summer does indeed come in play and does proc Rocky. Very scary board here. Calling the medical manager ensures that all 3 columns can actually hit, assuming I don't hit the damage trigger and the opponent doesn't hit the drive trigger. And then, unfortunately, PATRICIAN Pat did soul charge a perfect guard into the soul, but that's a very fortunate thing for me. So here I'm put at 2 damage, 16k still hits, and PATRICIAN Pat hits a draw trigger. Wow. Extending the lead in terms of card advantage. Look at that board, and then hand advantage. And also in terms of damage, 1 to 3 damage. This is not a very good situation for me. Not at all a good situation for me. Here, I do draw into, Deadly Emperor, but I already have one copy in my hand. I'm considering riding the General Safari, but I do go into the Deadly Emperor since I'm already at 3. I'm almost at limit break damage count already. Calling out the Intercept, and then I'm considering calling out the Bracky, but I do want to save that for the multi-attack turn later on. So I do choose to call out the grade 3 just to get rid of the Intercepts and get 1 damage into the face to catch up a little bit. Here, I'm thinking, like, oh, I haven't seen a heal yet. 4 left in the deck. I really do hope I hit one. Oh, and there it goes. That's the Jelly Bean, healing the counterblast damage, which gives me more options later into the game, and then puts the game back, even at 2 damage to 2. So I'm really, I'm overjoyed with the heal. If I didn't hit that, I'm probably gonna lose much earlier. It just shows how much Patrician knows the ins and outs of the game. When to apply pressure, when to pace yourself, when to invest and when to not overextend. I think those are very important. Jelly Bean here, and Jelly Bean again because both players are at 2 damage, so the heal will proc. Getting the Douglases into hand as well is definitely good, filling up the board. But what I can infer from this situation is that my opponent doesn't have a lot of options, grade 2 or above options, especially because, he searched out 2 Douglases and called out the 2 Douglases. Of course, it could mean that they're saving the Bracky or the Juggernaut for future turns, but as of right now, I know, that the options other than the options are quite limited here. Hitting a Juggernaut, draw a trigger. The good thing is that I'm now at 4 damage. The bad thing is now the difference is again 2 damage, a 2 damage difference. So maintaining that pressure, very important in Spike Brothers, and Patrician's doing a very good job in that regard. No, I'm not going to run into General Safari, not a chance. Putting the Deadly Emperor behind. So I do get to set up 2 intercepts in the front row. Important in this matchup because if you don't have the defense, you're gonna lose. So yeah, pulling out the Bracky on the left side and the Panther on the right side, using Bracky's skill. So here, obviously I'm going to use Deadly Emperor, but what I thought I had in my deck, I thought I still have my Devil Summoner, so I can call it out and hope to top deck a booster. And then I'm looking at like the deck and I'm like, wait, there's no Devil Summoner. What should I do? So I do instead call out the Panther, and what else did I call out? The Bracky? Probably still thinking about the Devil Summoner. I'm like, did I miss it? Did I miss it? Where did it go? Okay, I called out the Reckless Express as a booster, and it still enables your multi-attack, which is a pretty good option. And then here, oh, I whiffed it. Oh, and then here I hit a heal. Amazing, the second heal in the game. But unfortunately, the Panther will not hit at all. Should I have called out a Douglas? I didn't want to use the Douglas so early on because, well, first of all, I still have so many Jelly Bean copies in my deck, so if I do draw into them, I can still search for a Douglas. Second of all, like, if my opponent counterblast denies me, the flexibility into the very late game is just hindered, and so I just rather set up a defensive 10k intercept and then set up the game for my future turns. So here, our opponent's at 3 damage, we're at 3 damage, which means our opponent still cannot use the Deadly Emperor. So thinking. So here we can see calling out the Medical Manager, unfortunately still charging the Jelly Bean of the heal trigger, but what it again signals to me is that my opponent doesn't have a lot of options. You know, if you were calling out the medical manager, it means that maybe the rest of my hand are PGs. And we see a PG here. And I'm checking out, you know, oh yeah, it is a PG. Pat puts me to 4 again, challenging me to use, you know, the Deadly Emperor again. But I Jellybean the 3rd time, sacking my way through this fight. Impossible. So here I draw into a PG, not very useful. Pull up the Deadly Emperor, and I'm considering pulling out the Reckless Express, but I end up choosing not to. I choose not to because, well, you know, you can potentially hit, you know, the medical manager or hit your opponent's Vanguard. If you hit a trigger, put it back in the deck. But I do want to enable my multi-attack strategy in the late game, and the Reckless Express is too important for that, so let's just keep it safe in our pockets. Here, putting our opponent to 4, and I'm comfortable with that. Even though I don't have any intercepts, I'm still at 3 damage, I still have 2 PGs, so yeah. And as you can see, the trigger count is very imbalanced. Like, I've been sacking a lot just to catch up. It just shows how strong Pat really is. He's a champ for a reason. Here our opponent's thinking, you know, what should we do? Mecha Trainer into Perfect Guard? Okay. So it's the first turn our opponent can use the Limit Break, so getting rid of the Mecha Trainer, so then you have 2 front rows that can enable multi-attack. Very important, very important. Calling out the jugs. Oh, so I did get a damage trigger here, which does really help with the incoming wave of attacks that Pat is preparing. The Deadly Emperor with a 7k boost does hit 21, so it's great medical manager placement here. Probably thinking about what you'd call out here in this situation, especially because your opponent did get a defensive. It is really hard to make the extra attacks work. So if I were Pat, I would call out, you know, bigger grade 2 bodies just to protect themselves for the upcoming turn. 2 Brackies, very aggressive play here, respectable. So hitting the draw trigger here, enabling that Brachy column to attack if they do choose to Soul Blast. But I do hit another Jugs. Insane trigger luck here. You know, without these triggers, I would have been long gone. Long gone. Alright, so it's our turn. Stand and draw. So here we do have the Jugs, we do have the Brachy, we do have the Reckless Express, which means that we can do the 5 attack combo. Deadly Emperor does require a cost of putting 1 card into the Soul, so I will choose to put the Deadly 6k in. Keeping the Reckless Express as a booster, 7k boost is good enough, you know, 7 plus 9 is 16 after all, letting you hit the 11k numbers properly. So I'm checking what options I have, you know, learning from my mistake from the previous Deadly Emperor, where I did not know that I did not have any Devil Summoners left. Here, I do believe I choose to pull Douglas and 10k. Yep. So again, the 10k is a great defensive option. You know, like your other column isn't going to hit anyways because your opponent's 11k base. And the Douglas, you know, with the 3 counterblasts open, means that I can use it confidently and still threaten another Deadly Emperor turn the next turn. And also using the Caramelized one means that I will get the extra 5k, hitting 21, hitting your opponent, even if they hit a trigger, and you know, not require going back to the deck. And then I hit my 4th heal trigger. 4 heal triggers in the game. You know, that's insane. Opponent does hit a heal trigger. So it isn't that as imbalanced, but it's still very, very, very imbalanced on here. Another heal trigger. So I think at this point in the game, we've both hit like heal triggers, we've both hit triggers, draw triggers. We've both done Deadly Emperors, exhausting our resources. We both have PGs in our hands. How will this end up? How will this game end up? So here we see, you know, considering moving the 6k into the front row, again highlights the lack of options that Pat really has. Pulling up the Siegfried, you know. And one thing that Spikes really lacks at the moment is a lot of these, you know, hit and run options. You know, there is Reckless Express, there is Braki, there is Jugs, but if you don't have these, you know, it's really difficult to enable the multi-attack. So yeah, so like exactly in this situation, even though our opponent can use the Deadly Emperor, they choose not to. And one reason why could be because, you know, you're decking out. You're at 7 cards, you have PGs in your hand, you'd rather keep them in your hand and apply more pressure without using the Counterblast, and then maybe keeping it for the next turn, moving forward. And here on our turn, you know, I have 3 PGs. I'm considering like, okay, should I try to win the game here, or should I try to stall out the game? Because, well, I ran out of heal triggers, right? So I don't have that, you know, top deck option. Our opponent still has heal triggers. Our opponent still has PGs, and I do suspect that Patrician has, you know, at least 1 or 2, at least 1. And so I do use Deadly Emperor more defensively, setting up, you know, 2 intercepts. And I'm comfortable choosing the Douglas here because, well, I don't have Jelly Beans anymore, so there's no reason keeping in the deck. And I'd rather draw into the Braki to potentially hit numbers in the future. There is no reason to keep the Counterblast anyways. There's nothing else in the deck that will help me unflip or use Counterblast. So, you know, using the Douglas in order to get a chance to proc opponent's PG guaranteed is you know, valuable. You're proccing that 1 PG, and then Braki hits the Medical Manager, so our opponent cannot boost that column. So 6 cards left, 1 shot between both players. This is the final turn. This is make or break. Turn, I'm like, yeah, I agree. You know, like, if Pat doesn't win this turn, it's over. Pulling out the Reckless Express to enable the multi-attack. Putting the Jugs and the Reckless Express back into the deck alleviates the deck out issue. So definitely important to consider. So here I have exactly 5 guarding options. You know, 2 intercepts, 3 PGs, and I'm comfortable with it. You know, if our opponent does use the Deadly Emperor 5 attacks a turn at most, I have 5 cards to protect me with. Deadly Emperor comes out, you know, as expected, pulls out the Reckless Express and the Devil Summoner, pulling out another Reckless Express. You know, these numbers don't actually hit, and our opponent hits the draw trigger, which means they can't hit numbers. But if we remember, they did put back a Jugs, the Jug procs, and that's a deck out. Very, very climactic end to the fight. Yeah. So that was the end of a very, very tense fight for me. It was really, really down to the wire, even though I sacked so hard. But let's get ready for our second fight against MKWA's Skittles. Now, that banner right there, Vanguard Zero Ambassador, is a very, very slick looking one. Maybe I'll make up my own tournament just to get that banner. But we will, we will first get into the game. So yeah. So in this match, Skittles was very, very confident, only summoning one deck list, Gold Paladin 9 crit Easel. If you haven't seen how strong that deck is, check out my Bronze Easel video. And that video was me playing with common cards only. This is a proper deck with a proper skilled player. Very, very friendly. Here, I'm going second. I choose to put back the Douglas, keeping the 2 jelly beans. Of course, I don't want to pop the jelly beans too early, saving it for later. And I can always search for the Douglas later on anyways. Opponent rides the self-damager. So here, we draw into another Jelly Beans and a Reckless Express. And I'm kind of tempted to ride the Reckless Express. I'm like, is it valuable to ride the Reckless Express? It's a 7K, it's 1 extra K base. If our opponent hits like triggers, then it does nullify more multi-attack options. Thinking. I do ride the Reckless Express, knowing my opponent does play, an aggressive clan. The early game extra stats is important. Calling out the 6K right there, right in front of the Mecha Trainer. The numbers do hit. Our opponent 6K, we are 6K with a 5K boost. Assuming we both don't hit triggers, it will hit. And it works. Opponent hit a PG. That's amazing. And there we go. Turn 1, 2 damage. I'm pretty happy about it. Our opponent we got rid of an opponent's Bowmain, which means the likelihood of our opponent's superior riding is lower. And yeah, our opponent did miss the Bowmain, riding the 8K self-damager, and then just attacking like that. Hitting no triggers. I'm like, good, very, very good. I don't even care what we hit. We're maintaining the damage lead, and we're good to go. So here with the 2 grade 2 options, Bracky or Douglas, obviously you ride the Douglas. Douglas has no utility, Bracky does. Here, I'm gonna get rid of the Mecha Trainer. Search for a PG because you don't know when, a 9 crit deck is just gonna randomly hit crits here and there and kill you off. And then we will search for a Douglas. Searching for the Douglas so then we can have an extra attack in this turn. Don't have to invest the Bracky because the Bracky still has multi-attack potential. And against the crit deck, if I could outpace them, more the power to me. Here we hit the heal. Unfortunately, it doesn't proc. But yeah, opponent doesn't hit a damage trigger, so our Douglas can attack. Not gonna use that skill. So we are ahead, 1 to 4 damage advantage. Looking pretty good. If our opponent does have the Easel, well, they get to use the Limit Break, but you only have 5 counterblasts up to 5 times, making them use it early on when I'm still so ahead in damage. Definitely doesn't hurt. Let's see what the Easel gets. So that's Lop Ear Shooter. Lop Ear Shooter is a very, very good card, helping you filter out your grade 3s and dead cards in your hand. Exactly. Getting rid of the Sagramore here, for example, and then replacing it with a more valuable unit like a booster or an intercept. Maybe okay, so calling the Master of Pain, the self-damager, putting themselves to 5, which means that whatever heal trigger the opponent hits, it will activate, right? Okay, another Easel skill. Alright, this is a great call. great card, Listen of Truth, Dindrain, as mentioned in the intro to plans video. One of the very, very important cards in the Gold Paladin plan, and letting you just gain advantage easily. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Damage. That easel is going to hit 35 is insane. Heal trigger. Okay. So 2 to 4. Actually going to be 2 to 3 because the crit comes in, and all of a sudden we're at 4. We do hit a draw trigger. That's great, but it doesn't really help with the damage situation. So it's 4 to 3 right now. Putting back the 8K.
I'm dying. Help me.
All right. So since we are at 4, we can use Limit Break. Let's go for the Dudley Emperor. Come on. There we go. Okay, so the Dudley Emperor, and then Jelly Beans because we are behind in damage. Getting the Douglas, always a good pick. And then because we do have 2 Brackies, Reckless Express as well, we do have options for our multi-attack pattern. I'm considering playing the Reckless Express here so then I can save the other Brackie for the next turn. But what do we decide here? But if we do that, then we will have to either not call the booster or soul charge the Douglas, which isn't that great. And so here we do decide to play the 2 Brackies instead, and then soul charge the 6K booster as a cost. And this is fine because, well, the Brackie goes back to the deck, but you can always call it back out by Dudley Emperor, or just eventually draw into it anyways. So definitely not a bad play. Getting rid of the 2 intercepts here, so then we can actually go face and do the wombo combo right here. So one thing to note here with the damage is that I am actually at 4 damage with 1 counterblast available only. So I do want to get an extra damage next turn to actually get to finish off the game. Here we get the draw trigger, great. It means that both, or at least one, will hit even if our opponent hits a defensive, which they don't. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here we go. 16k hits, 5th damage, nothing again. 22 hits, 21. We're proccing that first PG out of our opponent's hand. Remember, Gold Paladin doesn't really have a lot of draw power. They have superior call engines, but they don't have a lot of draw power. So, especially they don't have tutoring power. They don't have a Mecha Trainer or a Conroe. So, having many PGs in their hand isn't actually that common. So yeah, pretty confident in this position. We are at 4 damage. Our opponent's at 5 though, and if we take 1 extra damage, unless our opponent chooses not to attack us with, in the last column, or if they hit a crit, we will be good to go. So here, Lockbeard Shooter ditching the Sagramore again. Same play as last turn. Calling out the 6k self-damager. If they call this out, then generally speaking, it also highlights the fact that our opponent doesn't have a lot of options left. Generally speaking, it's either PGs or grade 3s. So that makes me comfortable with the PG count in our opponent's hand because okay, so our opponent hits a crit here. This is a pretty bad scenario. So that means we can't use our Limit Break. We're losing a PG, but at least we're not losing yet. Not right now. But pretty terrible position. No more PGs to protect ourselves from random crits, and we don't have 2 intercepts. Okay, so we do have 2 units to call out. 1 intercept, 1 jug, which is a pseudo intercept because our opponent will deem it as a threat enough to choose to attack this grade 3. We have a PG to protect ourselves from stray crits from our opponent's Vanguard. So not a bad draw, definitely a good draw. But now here I'm considering, do I call out the Jug? Do I use the Reckless Express? I choose not to use the Reckless Express here because, well, I still want to use it for the last multi-attack turn, just in case our opponent has multiple PGs. Calling out the Jugs though, it is a pseudo taunt again. And definitely, I'd rather the opponent hit the Jugs than hit me in this scenario. Checking the triggers, I didn't hit as many as my opponent, and there are still quite a lot of triggers left in the deck, but unfortunately did not get anything. Our opponent does have a PG, that's very unfortunate.
So someone once asked me advice for how do I guess how many PGs your opponent has. Well, look at how awkward their calling is. You know, like if they always keep that like certain cards in their hand, or they won't call it out. Generally speaking, it's going to be a grade 3 or a PG. And I mean, in this case, Easel does have the superior call skill. So you know, you can't really use that as a very strong point of reference, but it does show you a little bit about the situation. Okay, so full mains attacks 9k. Vanguard hits Vanguard. I don't know if I agree with this play. I'd rather get the inflict, but oh, crit again? Crit again, so then so we can't use the Deadly Emperor. And if our opponent's smart, they will attack. Okay, attacking the rear guard, so then I can't even hit the intercepts properly. So in this case, there's definitely no way I'm going to use the Deadly Emperor skill again. Completely locked out of it, drew into Reckless Express. What do we do here? You know, I have to push it out, I have to call it out. Hope our opponent does not have any PGs left, but protect the Reckless Express just in case, you know, considering it. Yeah. Generally speaking, deal. Okay. So I've made two different misplays here. First of all, there's no reason why I need to use the Reckless Express as the first attack. I can always attack Vanguard to rearguard column to rearguard, and then if I don't hit any triggers, then use the Reckless Express skill. There's absolutely no reason why I had to do that first. Secondly, with the positioning of Reckless Express and the Dudley 6k, generally speaking, you should put the 6k in front to protect the Reckless Express. Here, we do get a draw trigger. Do we get a PG? No, we don't. Alright, does your opponent have the PG? Yes, they do. That's a third PG. That's insane. Wow. Okay. So it's our opponent's turn. You know, the idea of losing starts kicking in. You know, we don't have any intercepts. We don't have any PGs. We do have triggers left in our deck. We do have heals left in our deck. I believe 2 copies, 2 heals, 3 heals. So you know, unfortunately, heal only procs at 5 on the 6th damage. If I hit the first card as a heal, it doesn't help. What is it? It's a heal. Oh no. Oh, that's not good. That means there's 2 heals left, 17 cards in the deck. Reckless Express is at the bottom. Opponent hits a heal. They're at 4. If we hit a heal here, we still have a chance. What is it? But unfortunately, it is not, and that will be game.
Welcome back, everyone. So as you can see, unfortunately, I did pretty well in the first game, very close, and then I lost on the second game. But both fights were really entertaining. They were really fun. And major props to Patrician Pat, you know, very skilled player, and also Skittles, you know, for winning. Skittles did end up continuing in the tournament and got 2nd place. So congratulations on that. If you are interested in, you know, some competitive play outside of, you know, the tournament mode or championships tournament in Vanguard Zero, then, you know, I do encourage you to look out for different tournaments out there. If you are interested in, you know, joining the MKWA tournaments, you know, I will add some information down in the description box below. They are all very, you know, friendly. You know, they gave me a shout out. You know, some people called me out there asking me if I was the actual Entropy, and I guess I am. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun to get to talk to you guys outside of YouTube as well. But you know, if you have any comments, you know, any thoughts on the games, you know, any advice, because I did misplay here and there. So let me know down below, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, like the video if you do like it, and you know, do all that nice stuff. Alright, until next time, see you.